It didn't start with a talk or even a phone call. Just a blunt, emotionless text that hit harder than any argument ever could. I need space from marriage. 5 words. No punctuation. No explanation. And she sent it on our anniversary. I was in the kitchen when it came through, right in the middle of uncorking a bottle of her favorite red, one of those rare indulgences I'd picked up weeks ago, thinking this night might remind us what we used to be. The table was already set, napkins folded into those little triangles she used to smile at. I even left a simple note in her glass. Nothing over the top. Just a line saying I still believed in us, no matter how far off track things had gotten. I thought we were just stuck in a rut. That maybe we both needed a night to reset, to remember. Turns out she had a different fix in mind and exit. When the message came through, I just stood there for a while, staring at the screen. I watched those 3 little dots pop up like maybe she had more to say, then vanish. She changed her mind. Or maybe she'd already said everything she wanted to. I didn't reply. Didn't call. I turned the oven off, dumped the dinner I'd been working on for hours straight into the trash, blew out the candles, and stood there in the dim silence. The saddest part? I wasn't even shocked. I'd felt this coming for months, like a slow leak in a tire you keep ignoring. She'd stopped laughing at my dumb jokes. Started pulling away when I reached for her. Her answers got shorter. 1 word. Maybe 2 if I was lucky. And her phone? That thing was practically glued to her hand. Still, even knowing all that, I never expected today to be the day. Our 10th anniversary. 10 years to the day since I dropped to one knee on the freezing sand of the Outer Banks, her tears falling onto my forehead as she whispered, "You're the only one I've ever wanted." Yeah? I guess I was just a stepping stone. The guy before the real guy. The warm-up act. I picked up the note from her glass and tore it to pieces over the sink. No drama. No yelling. Just quiet movements and a locked front door behind me as I walked out into the night. I didn't have a destination. Just ended up somewhere between a corner liquor store and that stretch of beach near the harbor. Found a bench. Sat down with a bottle that tasted like gasoline but helped me feel a little less. She wasn't off on some wellness retreat. I'd already figured that out. Told me she needed solitude. Space. Just some time alone. But I knew. Deep down, I knew she wasn't alone. Not really. I told her I could tag along just to help her unwind. She smiled, soft but unyielding, and said she needed to clear her head alone. Not fix anything, just hit pause. Back then, I took her at her word. Gave her the benefit of the doubt. A week later, she wasn't asking for space, she was declaring it. But what she didn't expect was that I'd give her more than that. Way more. I wasn't going to cry. I wasn't going to grovel. I wasn't even going to ask who he was. Because deep down, I already knew. There's a certain quiet that settles in when a woman's emotionally checked out. You feel it in the dead air after a joke, in the way hugs get shorter, and how often "I'm just tired" becomes her new personality. She wasn't tired. She was already gone. So while she was off somewhere doing God knows what with God knows who, I stood there with the bottle we never drank and poured it straight into the sand. Then I walked back to my car and started building a plan. Not for payback. I wasn't interested in drama or some drawn-out meltdown. I wanted a clean exit. The space she asked for? I was going to make sure she got more than she bargained for. Next morning, I was up before the sun. No dramatic nightmare or sudden epiphany. Just a strange, calm emptiness that settled in like fresh air after a storm. Everything looked clearer. Like the fog had finally burned off. I made a cup of coffee, took the dog out, then sat down at the kitchen table with a legal pad. Not to write her a letter or vent. Just to ask myself some questions. Stuff like, when did her eyes stop lighting up when I walked into the room? Or when did I stop noticing how distant she'd become? The truth? I'd seen the signs for months. I just didn't want to connect the dots. It wasn't one huge blowout that wrecked us. No screaming match or flying plates. Just the slow, quiet crumble like rain seeping into a foundation until everything solid starts to split. But now? I wanted proof, not feelings. So I logged into our old shared cloud account. We'd linked our phones years ago for backup. She never bothered to switch hers over. Most people forget about things like that. I hadn't. I scrolled through the latest uploads. Nothing flashy, some salads half-eaten, a grainy shot of the sunrise, a book on her lap, a glass of wine. She probably posted that one with some deep caption to sell the me-time vibe. Then I saw it. A picture from 2 nights ago. She was smiling wide, lit by the kind of glow you only wear when you're seen by someone new. In the background, a rooftop bar. But what caught my eye wasn't her expression. It was the arm just barely in frame behind her chair. A man's arm. Relaxed. Familiar. He wasn't a waiter. Not some random barfly. He was close, casual, like he'd been there a while. Light blue shirt. Crisp white button. A woven cufflink I recognized instantly. Colin. Her coworker. Same Colin who whispered something into her ear at the holiday party a few months ago that made her cheeks turn pink. The one she said was just on her team for that Phoenix marketing trip. Yeah, that Colin. It was Colin, the same guy whose name started popping up on her phone during dinner. The same guy she'd smile at through a screen while I cleared the dishes. And back then? I told myself not to overthink it. I chalked it up to work, buried the discomfort, even smiled through it. What a fool I was. I tapped on the photo details. Location tag, GeoEgg, some trendy rooftop bar downtown. Nowhere near the peaceful spa retreat she swore she needed. I opened our shared credit card log. Took about 30 seconds. 2 charges from that same night, one from the bar, the other from a boutique hotel just across the street. Both under her name. It wasn't rocket science. She hadn't even tried to cover her tracks. She just assumed I'd never go looking. I closed the app and leaned back in the chair, the screen's glow still fresh in my eyes. It didn't hit like a gut punch. No surge of rage. It was quieter than that. Like someone dumping ice water down your spine. Slow, paralyzing, and bitterly clear. But I wasn't going to rage text her or blow up her phone while she was off playing house with someone else. What would that do? She'd lie. Deny. Maybe even flip it around on me like I was the problem. She asked for space. Fine. I'd give it to her. But first, I needed the full picture. So I went deeper, dug back through months of photos synced to our cloud. I wanted to know how far back this lie went. And there it was. A shot from 2 months earlier. Close-up of her hand holding a glass of rose at some polished restaurant table. And across from her, barely in frame, was that same damn sleeve, light blue with that woven cufflink. Collins. They hadn't been careful. Or maybe they just didn't care anymore. I stared at the image, the date stamped right there, a Saturday night. She told me she was stuck at the office, staying late to wrap up a campaign debrief. Came home wiped out. I remember it clearly because I'd run her a bath, rubbed her shoulders, tried to help her unwind. She said, just tired. Mentally fried. That moment twisted in my chest like a knife. Not pain. Not even betrayal. Something deeper, shame. Humiliation. Realizing I'd been supporting her while she was sneaking off with someone else. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't one drunken night. It was intentional. Repeated. Quietly orchestrated. I stood up and walked over to the desk. Pulled out a business card I hadn't looked at in years, a divorce attorney a friend once swore by after his own marriage fell apart. I remember holding onto it just in case, never really believing I'd need it. Now, I knew better. I stared at the card for a long second. Then I picked up my phone and made the call. The receptionist was professional, calm. She didn't pry, didn't press. Just said, yes, Mr. Carter. We can get you in first thing tomorrow. That afternoon, I cleared my schedule. Not in a rush, not out of panic. With intention. I wasn't looking to blow anything up. I didn't want revenge. I just wanted out clean with my self-respect intact. I wasn't fighting for her anymore. She wanted space. I'd make sure she had all the room in the world. Only thing I was leaving behind was her. The law office was tucked just off the main square, sleek, quiet, and high-end. The kind of firm that didn't need flashy ads or billboard slogans. They handled the serious stuff. The private stuff. The divorces that never made a scene. Inside, everything was clean lines and calm lighting designed to feel like control. I was introduced to a partner named Elena. Mid-40s, sharp suit, sharper questions. She didn't offer sympathy. Didn't act surprised. She just looked at me square and said, walk me through it. Let's get to work. So I did. I told her everything from the cold anniversary text to the so-called retreat, the cropped bar photo, the credit card trail, and the unmistakable appearance of Colin. She didn't flinch. She just listened, made notes, and when I finished, she set her pen down and said, you'll be all right. She, on the other hand, is about to find out what space really means. We spent the next hour laying out a strategy. Step 1, secure the finances. Nothing shady, just smart. We shut down the joint accounts that afternoon. Opened new ones in my name. Redirected all bills and auto payments. She wouldn't notice right away. But the next time she tried to swipe the card she never bothered checking, it had hit her. Step 2, the house. It was bought before the wedding. My name was the only one on the deed. She'd never thought to change that. Her oversight. My leverage. I got in touch with a real estate consultant and Elena connected me with an appraiser. Whether it sold or became a legal card to play, I'd be ready. Step 3, the paper trail. Every screenshot, every email, every credit card charge organized, backed up, timestamped. I wasn't looking for drama. I wanted precision. No room for stories. No wiggle room for denial. Just the truth, front and center. And then I waited. She got back Sunday evening, suitcase in hand, fresh from her rooftop retreat. She strolled in like it was any other day, gave me a casual, hey, like we'd never skipped a beat. I just nodded. Didn't ask questions. Didn't show a flicker. She assumed I'd swallowed the narrative. That I'd shrunk into silence like she hoped. What she didn't realize was that I was already several moves ahead. That week, her confidence bloomed. She stopped hiding her phone. Started smiling at her screen during dinner. Talked about needing air, how she felt boxed in. About redefining what marriage meant. I sipped my coffee and listened, quiet, steady, like a man observing a forecast he already knew was coming. She thought she was writing the script. But the scene had already changed. Thursday morning, she left early for work. I waited 20 minutes, then opened the secure app my PI used to upload his findings. And man, he delivered. Photos. Time logs. Her and Colin kissing in a hotel elevator, checking in under her maiden name, heading back the next day in the same outfit. No wiggle room. No denial. Just cold facts, dressed in full color. That evening, as we sat at dinner, I casually asked about her day. She smiled, said work was hectic but fine. I smiled back. And I nodded. I'm glad to hear that, I told her, watching her smile like everything was normal. She leaned in, kissed me on the cheek, and said, I'm doing my best. In that split second, I understood she wasn't trying to fix anything. She was staging her exit. Carefully crafting a version of the story where she looked like the one who tried while I came off cold or indifferent. She had no clue that by this time next week, she'd be walking away with nothing but her suitcase and a head full of excuses no one would buy. Later that night, once she was asleep, I did one last check. Reviewed Elena's checklist, confirmed the server's schedule, and ran through the files again, tight and complete. Before shutting down my laptop, I logged out of every shared streaming account. Petty? Maybe. But it felt good. A small reclaiming of space. She lay next to me, breathing softly, curled into the sheets like nothing was wrong. She didn't know. She couldn't know. That the man she thought she was stringing along wasn't her safety net anymore. He was the exit sign. And soon, not even that. Sunday rolled in without a sound. I watched her pack a small tote in the mirror. She was humming. We hadn't touched. We hadn't argued. Yet she moved like a woman who had settled something inside herself, like she'd won a quiet war no one knew about. She wore the same linen dress from the rooftop photo. She didn't know I recognized it, but I did. What used to seem effortless and beautiful now looked like a disguise. A uniform for a life she built in parallel. I'll be back tonight, she said, purse over her shoulder. We've got an off-site with Colin's team. Full-day brainstorm. I smiled and walked her to the door. Hope it's productive. She leaned in for a kiss. I angled just slightly, letting it land on my cheek. She didn't notice. Her head was already somewhere else. An hour later, I made the call. When she got home that night, somewhere past 10 p.m., it was all set in motion. The first thing she saw was the envelope on the kitchen counter. Inside, formal divorce papers, financial breakdowns, disclosures, and everything neatly organized to be filed by Monday morning. Alongside it, a letter. No venom. No accusations. Just a plain timeline. A record of what I knew and when. Hotel confirmations. The rooftop photo. Matching outfits. Her cropped Instagram post. Colin's name circled like a headline. Upstairs, I was folding clothes into a weekend bag when I heard her footsteps pound up the stairs. Are you kidding me? She snapped, voice sharp. I didn't flinch. Didn't even look up. You asked for a break, I said calmly. This is me giving it to you. You were spying on me? No, I said. I documented your choices. She paced like someone trying to catch up to a train already gone. It wasn't like that. Nothing happened. You're making this bigger than it is. I handed her my phone, already unlocked, the gallery open to the investigator's photo set. No yelling. No breakdown. Just the final, undeniable truth. And for the first time in weeks, I didn't feel broken. I felt done. Colin's hand on her waist. Her head tilted back, laughing into his chest. That hotel key card in her grip like it belonged there. When she saw the photos, her face didn't shift in guilt, just shock. Not sorrow. Not regret. Just the stunned realization that she wasn't going to get away with it. And that's when it landed. Not the divorce itself, but the weight of consequences. I don't understand, she said, almost breathless. What happens with the house? With my... I cut her off, calm and clear. You don't own the house, I said. I do. Your name's not on the deed. You told me we didn't need paperwork. Said it was too messy to mix names. She looked down at her hand and twisted the ring off like it had turned toxic. You can't do this, she whispered. I didn't say a word. Didn't need to. That's when the doorbell rang. It was Sarah, our mutual friend. The one who'd always sensed something was off but never crossed the line to say it. I'd texted her earlier, asked her to be there, just in case. Sarah stepped inside, cool and composed. She glanced at my wife, gave a polite nod, arms folded. Everything all right? She asked. I'm good, I said. My wife didn't answer. For the first time since all of this started, she knew she wasn't in control anymore. I let Sarah take her upstairs to grab the basics, some clothes, her laptop, toiletries. Nothing more. I didn't ban her from the house. I didn't scream or slam doors. I just made it unmistakably clear she didn't live here anymore. She didn't fight it. Didn't beg to stay. She just walked out. And she didn't head to Colin's place either. I knew that because the investigator kept following her, this time not for evidence. Just for closure. She drove aimlessly for a while. Pulled into a gas station. Sat in the lot with the engine running. Eventually, she made her way to a short-term rental I'd seen in her saved Airbnb list. 1 bedroom. No view. No Colin. Turned out Colin had a fiancée. 5 months pregnant. So much for a fresh start. Back at home, I poured myself a drink. Not out of joy, just to mark the moment. To let it breathe. She thought she could walk into a new chapter without consequences. That I'd be here sulking in the wreckage while she found herself in someone else's bed. But she was wrong. I didn't ruin her. I just stopped being the soft place to land. Weeks went by. No chaos. No confrontation. Just silence. She found a small apartment across town. Moved in quietly. No grand announcements. I never reached out. Never asked how she was adjusting. And honestly, I think that silence hurt more than any screaming match ever could. She expected a storm. What she got was stillness. She thought I'd fall apart. Thought I'd unravel once the papers hit the table. But I didn't. I signed them without hesitation, handed everything over to the lawyer, and let the system do what it was built to do. No long arguments. No courtroom drama. Just signatures, documentation, and silence. Her version of reality, the one she crafted out of half-truths and little escapes, collapsed quietly. No explosion. Just a quiet undoing. And mine? Mine finally started to breathe. The house was quieter without her, but somehow it felt more alive. I boxed up the throw pillows she insisted tied the room together, sold the cold glass coffee table she thought looked modern. I replaced it with something older, solid oak, a little beat up. Something that didn't belong in a showroom but did in a home. That first weekend she was gone, I drove out to the lake. No destination, just a steering wheel and some space. It was early spring, one of those days where the air's still crisp but the sun feels like a promise. I found myself stopping at this old antique barn I hadn't visited in years. Bought a couple handmade mugs, glazed uneven and perfect. The next morning, I drank coffee from one of them as the sunlight hit the kitchen counter in a way I'd never noticed before. Not because it hadn't happened, but because I was always too distracted to see it. I realized I wasn't just picking up the pieces, I was building something new. Slowly. Quietly. And this time for me. There was no pressure to fill the space. No panic to replace her. I wasn't chasing closure, I already had it. Peace, it turns out, was never about getting even. It was about getting back to yourself. About a month after she moved out, she sent a message. 3 words. No context. No punctuation. Do you hate me? I stared at the screen for a moment. Then I erased it. No response. No lingering questions. I didn't hate her. I just didn't need her anymore. A few days later, Sarah came by with coffee. She laughed a little when she said it, but there was something real in her voice. You're handling this better than anyone I've ever seen. She stayed longer than usual. We sat out on the porch talking about everything but the past. It wasn't a date. It wasn't a flirtation. It was just real. Grounded. Easy. And for the first time in a long while, I didn't feel like an extra in my own story. Funny thing. My ex once told me she felt like being married in your 30s meant missing out. That she needed space to discover a version of herself she hadn't fully lived yet. Turns out that version lied. That version cheated. That version mistook boredom for being trapped and recklessness for freedom. And me? I didn't miss out on anything. I reclaimed it all, my peace, my time, my sense of self. So when people ask what happened, I don't bring up the texts or the rooftop photos or Colin. I just say she asked for a break. And I gave it to her for good.